I'm a curmudgeon, and this is my cellar. Welcome. It's gonna be in this. I think it's gonna be an interesting episode here. We got a few things to talk about. Not the least of which was on Tankar's Tavern a few nights ago. The wizards are gonna Lanasa and the hobby shop and all that are going to be crushed. I just saw today that the TSR Hobby Shop Museum is up for sale for $5 million. And that's a joke and a half. Granted, the property that the house sits on is pretty valuable by Lake Geneva standards, but $5 million, not a chance. And if they did, looks like the Wizards would get it anyway. Anyhow, that was fun to see. Thank you so much, Tim, for satisfying my curiosity regarding the development of Magic Missile. This fills in the gaps both regarding the variations that appear in the Mouse Manual for Nugu, he is some dude that starts with Y, and the Night Hag, as well as any homebrew or spell research that might be undertaken in my home game. No longer working in a vacuum. Have a great weekend. Well, I'm glad to give you some air. I'd hate to think that you were working in a vacuum and you might... My pleasure. Next. I always liked the idea that Identify was a risk for characters. Some first-level magic user finding some ancient and powerful magic item that has been entombed for thousands of years at no risk is able to immediately tell what it is. That would be quite anticlimactic. I do too, and I've been thinking more on what we talked about last time, and that's the loss of the points for several hours. I could even be harsher than that, depending upon how magical an item was and how unmagical the person trying to suss it all out was, because the concept of what is this, and applying, I would imagine you'd be applying words and phrases that were similar, and you might actually hit on something that would lead you down a dead alley, a dead-end alley. Oops, and that wasn't very good for your brain. I always gave tiny chances trying to figure out what something was if it was several levels above your expertise. Whether it was a magic item, a magic spell, whatever. I always made it extremely difficult. That was a good reason to go find another expert that could do this for you. Of course, it costs you some gold, okay. And that keeps the adventurers adventuring. But that was a way to do it, was to go to a higher level, petition, would you please hear us? Here, we'll pay you a lot of money for a translation. And those were little side quests off and on. Always good to hear you. Hope you're feeling well and taking care for the winter. Yes, we are taking care for the winter. Had all the medical checks and tests I've had in the last several weeks. And everything is, for a person of my age that's done the shit I've done, I'm in awfully good shape. Even missing a few bits and pieces. We've winterized our porches front and back. The yard's pretty well tucked up. The fountain's put away, and the heated bird bath is now out again. And so yeah, we're getting ready for winter, even though we're supposed to have a rather warmer one here in Ohio. Who knows? You can always get a freak storm. And it's winter. Hey, you got to expect some of that. What are you? All right. Do you like the idea of using an ancient Egyptian dungeon in a medieval game setting? Well, This one poses a couple of interesting things. Number one, a medieval game setting. You've made the sets look like medieval, and you've had the jolly villagers act in the medieval fashions and that. But let's remember, it's fantasy. And what better way to be fantastic than to find yourself in some really out of this world, out of your realm of comfort, out of your realm of what you know. Great idea. Sure, why not? Especially if the players don't have any clue that you're going to do this to them. Absolutely. Oh, wish I'd thought of it first. Thoughts on Illusionists. If you ever did use them in your games, as an adjunct bad guy in the Qualishar campaign at Carbondale, was this another subclass that you didn't care for? Yeah, I could take them or leave them. Everybody, lots of people complain about how hard it is as a would-be magic user to make it to 34th level. Well, I got news for you. A first level illusionist has got one spell that does no physical harm. It does no harm. All right. First level illusionist, if what you're trying to buy into your illusion doesn't, you're screwed. Absolutely screwed. In a charity game that I was in Texas a few years back, Sandy Peterson, the Cthulhu guy, and I were in a game that Doug was emceeing, and we'd been given characters, and he was something really small, and I was a gnome illusionist or something of that. We were both, halfling sized or less, and my only spell was only just a teaser, a fooler. It did no damage, set no fires, nothing. And so for the rest of the entirety of that adventure, Sandy and I did the same thing, and that is we never got out of the pack panniers that were on the sides of the pack horses. We just sat up and looked over the top and watched what happened, because neither one of us could do doodly squat. So I have very little use for illusionists as a player character. As a monster, certainly. Because when you get up into some of those high levels and they believe them, they really hurt. And we always played that if you believed you got hit with that stick, well, you took some hit points for getting hit with that stick. There was a period of time when, because of something in a Conan novel, Robert E. Howard had written that Conan was befuddled and he'd been ensorcelled with a vision, and he got alcohol splashed in his eyes, and he could see through the illusion. Well, there's a period of several months that everybody was going around. You open the door and you see six crates. Well, I throw whiskey. I throw booze in my eyes. Is it expecting that to see through an illusion? Well, what most of us DMs did was just give them big round red raccoon eyes and decreased vision and sensitivity to bright lights and soon they learned that didn't always work, and we kind of quashed that idea. We being most of the game masters, and certainly a lot of the ones who were reading Strategic Review and Dragon Magazine. The anti-cleric. Can I explain the anti-cleric? Well, there was a period of time during the development of the game as it was evolving that there was an anti-movement, anti-paladins, bad paladins, anti-clerics, bad clerics. They didn't give you a heal potion, they gave you a debilitate potion or a kill you potion or whatever. They didn't heal people, they cast diseases upon them. It was a fad. I don't think they were. I certainly don't think it's held on to today. That there's a lot of anti this and anti that. An anti paladin I can sort of see, because a paladin has to be goody two shoes, etc., to be. So an anti paladin, someone really really evil, like Elric perhaps. I can see that, but the anti this and anti that, there weren't too many they could be an anti. Well, if you were an anti-fighter, you were a pacifist and didn't last through the first round. It was a thing during a period of time in the evolution of the game. Today we would look at an anti-cleric as just an evil cleric. Well, at this time also, we were skirting around what we were extolling in the rules. All right, we were getting flack in this place and that place occasionally, and so we weren't extolling evil priests any more than we were extolling evil succubi that we're going to corrupt their little 14-year-old kid's mind. So we danced around certain things. I mean, if we wanted to make an anti-cleric, we just could have called it a Inquisition. Let's see, where are we going? All right. You've spoken on the appendix and inspirational reading list. I've worked my way through most of it piecemeal by coming through used bookstores. Yes. In fact, I was at a game hole, happened to stop by a rack of old pulp books, and a couple guys I knew were there. I said, "Oh, look at that, the inspiration for the Paladin." They go, "What?" It was 3 Hearts and 3 Lions, which Gary often referenced as the inspiration, the principal original inspiration for the Paladin. Anyway, now I'm picking up less discussed titles from the same genre and time, based mostly on a paperback's cover art. Do there happen to be many books that stand out in your memory as having made a sale to you based on cover art alone? No. I honestly can say no. I didn't ever buy a magazine or a book for its cover. I bought for what was in it, and just the way it's just the way I roll. Good cover art to get me to pick it up and see if and flip through it and see and maybe get it or check it out at the library, or whatever. Yes, certainly. That's what covers are for. Hey, look at me. Psst, hey, sailor. Hey, sailor. Or whatever, it's come look at me and peruse my pages. That's what a good cover does to at least magazines. I need a DVD of your episodes because I don't want to rely on a funny misspelling of YouTube. Your program is, after all, a great video magazine about the hobby. Any possibility that this may happen in the near future? I have no problem. I have no plans whatsoever to do it myself. That sounds like a whole lot of work. Why? Well, my vein. Oh, my phone's charged. My vein size says, "Oh yes, I should have these preserved for all eternity," but I hadn't given it any thought until this question. Is it possible for Druid types to engage in violence as an act of worship to their deity? And what benefits might this arrangement confer? Could it lead to a sort of buff loop? Well, all right. My concept of Druids has always been in the Celtic sense. Irish, Scots, Welsh. That's my concept. That's the way my Druids work. That's the way they roll in my world. They don't have a deity. They recognize many of the Celtic deities, each in their own niche in the pantheon, each with their own areas of responsibility. So, could a Druid engage in violence? Certainly. Certainly. If a Druid who has been, since time immemorial, been charged with protecting a certain forest and making it prosper and grow, were to have that said forest assailed by a determined logging party from some slimeball local lord, or even just somebody that's come in and decided they're going to mine timber, or harvest timber out of your forest, and they're not doing it well. Whereas you doing it well will tell the local foresters, villagers, or wherever, this tree can go, and I have no objection with these, and you allow selective harvest. They come in and start to clear cut. If warning stunts, tricks, traps of increasing lethality don't work, well, I would not punish anybody in a world that I was working in or running with eliminating a couple of key woodcutters until they got the idea that, no, you weren't about to have your forest clear cut. Wouldn't have a problem with that. Any more than the Ents had a problem with taking down Saruman, because what he had done over the years and over the decades, and what his minions were doing to the forest, okay, they were non-warlike, very peaceful creatures until pushed so far. I see the Druid as more the steward of the woods, clearing out invasive species that are not good, and perhaps in small ways increasing the fecundity of his forest. Not Johnny Appleseed, not John Deere out there plowing, but yeah, and so I could certainly see that. If now you say violence, do you limit it strictly to humans, or what if a couple of giant beavers? Again, we're talking fantasy. For whatever reason, a couple of giant beavers start to cut down his old growth elms and ashes. Well, certainly he can kill him. If he can't drive him away, certainly he can kill him, commit violence. I don't see Druids as total pacifists. No. And going back to the references to Illusionists, I see Druids as being able to almost as good as illusionists. Fade away, hide themselves, slip out of sight when no one's looking. Masters of concealment. In their own element in the forest. I would make them almost like green ninjas. But that's just me. Hope you're doing well. Well, soon we'll get to 300 episodes. Yes, yep. Well, it'll be a while. But, let's see, where we had 79, 21. Yeah, it'll be about March somewhere, I guess. Maybe right after GaryCon. All right, a while back I asked you what kind of boundaries you... Okay, this is a long involved, and there's been some responses to it. But it's interesting, and I will comment because I'm asked to. A while back I asked about what kind of boundaries you've got to have and what content to publish a game. I'm working on metal musicians going on adventures and spreading their stories through blasting music. What, kind of like Bob and Ted... Bob and Ted. Drop acid and blast through the world. As of November this year, I'm almost ready for my first playtest. To skip to my question, right now the game uses a pool of D6s that can, at the best possible outcome, get up to 10 D6 when all traits and attributes are added. Then you've got to add the results together to figure out your success and additional buffs. I've got a few comments by people being at too many dice, but how much is too many dice and what do you think are the problems with these kinds of systems? Okay. Too many dice are when the players playing it that you're getting to play tested tell you it's too many dice. If you're not going to listen to the playtesters, why bother? You can just publish it as an ego project without any testing or anything, just telling the world, here it is, see my magnificent game. If the playtesters are telling you too many dice, too many dice. How many dice can you hold in your hand when you roll? How big a dice tower do you need to roll that many dice through? Will you drop them in like pennies like quarters into the pusher machine at the casino? How do you keep them all on the table? How do you keep them from not knocking game pieces off the table if you got that many dice? You roll them all in a big box? There can be times when 5 or 6 or even maybe 7 dice, depending on the circumstances, and they're rare, could be rolled. But that many dice? No. 10d6, unwieldy in the hand, hard to find somewhere you can roll them where they all are going to roll right and not roll off the table and not hit your chits or your pieces or your figures or whatever you're using. If your playtesters tell you it's too many dice, it's too many dice. And you know what? I agree. Routinely, even if it's just only frequently, having to roll that many dice for a result is way too many dice. Way too many dice. My opinion, you asked. All right, now, in response to that from other viewers, congrats on making your own game. That's very inspiring. Just checking in to clarify, is your system using a dice pool mechanic? And do the traits and attributes allow players to increase the number of dice they can roll? And then the original poster answers, yes. Right after character creation, the characters have a dice granted from their powers. They also gain additional dice or decrease if there are wounds or flaws from other traits, but those depend on the situation at hand. But I'll say again, and rolling 10d6s, even once in a while, is a real stretch. And I mean, if you're talking about your average players, not your gung ho collectors, about which I'm going to talk about later. Finding 10d6. Who buys 10d6? Dice collectors. Otherwise, you got to go scrounge them out of all the Monopoly and other games in your house. Okay, this is from our school clubs. They're finding problems right now. They had to break for Veterans Day. There's winter breaks coming up, so they're going to get it's going to be sketchy for a while for them. And so since they won't be continuing the regular campaigns, he's going to try run as many students as possible through some DCC or MCC funnels, 0-level funnels. And he says he laughs evilly. Speaking of DCC, I participated in one of their DCC demo nights this past Tuesday. And oh man, what an amazing experience. Totally free, 2-hour demo at level 2, and the judge is none other than Brendan LaSalle. I'm still in disbelief at how cool it is that they do this and gasp for free. Best part, you really come away with confidence to continue playing or even start judging. Last thing, all right, stop right there. Yeah, it worked, didn't it? It's brilliant marketing on their part. And it is proselytizing. It is preaching the gospel. How we play our games at Goodman Games. And that's brilliant marketing. More people, more companies should try and do that and find more recruits and build the hobby. As well as increase sales of their own products. Okay. Question for you in the Curmudgeon. All right. I read somewhere out in the net that monsters from AD&D first can pretty much be readily used in DCC with only slight adjustment. Would you happen to have any insight on whether this is true? Following that, besides the Monster Manuals 1 and 2, what are some of your recommended sources for critters, besides one's own imagination, of course? Have a great weekend. I don't know where to tell you to go make up critters. Critters strike you. They strike me, or they don't. I haven't needed to make one up in quite a while, though in the Lost Adventures that Wizard Tower is putting out, the limited edition of my things from the first 2 Gary Cons, there are a bunch of new creatures. Now, I have, in one of the adventures I wrote, and when I was at Eldridge, I created an entire race of fallen fae. I make up a monster when I see a hole. When there's a flaw in the balance. Just like I advocated for psionics to counter the mind flayers and the mind eaters and the thought moles and all those horrible crap things. I decided to make a race of corrupt fae. And they become corrupt because they were so hideously isolated so long ago from a cataclysm on the landmass that they were situated as. So they were completely acting against what they'd originally been put there to do, I guess. And so I made up some stuff there. When I make something up, it's to fit a need. In this case, a couple of things that had to be as weird and otherworldly as the race was. And I try to create things that would be unique to them, because I just hate it. Just hate it when I get some smart ass at my table I do not a blatant but a subtle description. Oh well, hell, that's a Garmagast, and it's got 4 hit. Oh man, uh, if I'm writing an adventure, believe that you're going to run into some stuff that's going to be unique to the adventure that you're not going to know walking in. That's when I create. And that's why I create. So that there's something different. Now, there's a bunch of new stuff in the Lost Adventures book, but a lot of that had to be done to take out stuff that I didn't give a shit about copyrights when I put it together way back when, because I was going to do it at Gary's Con. So, it was just an homage thing. No plans on printing it. Had to change that. Let's see. All right, to continue here. Pretty much readily used in DCC. Well, I don't think so. Hit points and damage and stuff don't interchange in those two at all. So I don't think, in my knowledge and my experience, I don't think they're an easy blend. I think if you're real good at MCC or DCC, you could draw in from other places, but I'm sure you'd be modifying it on the way in through your door. Regarding spells that take a toll on the caster, or that are hard to manage, I think that's a good thing, as spells should not always be cast and forget. They, I think, should take a toll on the caster sometimes, draining, tiring, etc. I think it adds a factor of realism. I do too. That's why when we were, figuring out how long is it going to take a wizard of what level to create something like this, it was a long time because it's physically draining. And it cost a lot of gold because it was physically draining. I responded to that. With our current project, spells can be cast over and over. If you know it, you know it. However, each one requires a check, and if you don't meet the difficulty level, it fails. And if you roll all ones, then it's a disaster and an adverse effect happens. So far in play, it's been pretty fun. Well, that's the main thing, if you're having fun with it. And if that's the way you want to run it, okay. If you're having fun with it, then that's the thing, right? There's going to be an article in the next Scientific Barbarian that every player of fantasy in the style of a la whatever you want to call it, D&D, should read about Jack Vance and his writings and how they are the underpinnings of fantasy role-playing as we all know it. I believe his Kickstarter is going right now. I'm telling you, even if you don't play a post-apoc, this article is a great read. Great read by a good author. A guy that writes real books. not only game books. Real books. Let's see, where are we going? All right. I know Professor Me won't like this, but I too prefer this DCC type magic. That's fine. I don't like it or dislike it. I like to play what I like to play. Okay? I like to play what I wrote some of way back when. I like to play what I've been playing for, by God, almost 50 years now. But I don't dislike. So I admire the gracefulness that the DCC and MCC system works with. Very well done. But I'm not going to change. I'm too old. And, you know, hey, I'm not going to abandon something that I wrote part of and continue tweaking and enjoying. Just curious if you still do the Patreon-only videos, content, or the monthly Q&A. I would love to. I have tried so many times to set something up. 3 weeks in advance, I make an announcement. I put out my Zoom address. Okay. Hey, if you guys can get 4 or 5 of you together at one time, I'll come to a Q&A or whatever. But honest to God, I gave up in despair trying to get more than one. I think one night I had a Zoom where one guy showed up and we talked. We bullshit for 25 minutes, and then we both realized, yeah, okay, he got to ask all the questions and okay, and that was that. So yeah, if you guys want to get together and give me a date when a bunch of you can get together, I'm there for you. Love to. All right. Want to play a game? Could also be the start of thermonuclear war. Yes, it could. And yes, we've probably all seen that movie where a nerdy hacker, Matthew Broderick, trying to impress a little nymphette girl, nearly starts a nuclear war. Lesson, don't hack. Okay. I love your intro music. Who is the artist / band? And my editor answered for me. That would be the Bards of Greyhawk. They wrote and performed the theme song, especially for me. Yes. They were interested in being a sponsor and whatever, and I said, I'll tell you what. If you write a little ditty that I can use for my theme music, I'll let you be a sponsor for a year. And actually, they ran for longer than that. And so they asked me a bunch of questions. Because if you listen carefully, there's a lot of fact and history in that song. And then when they wanted the style, I specifically asked for that bluegrassy, sort of music of the hills style. As an aside, my wife doesn't like it at all, but she's not into bluegrass, and I am. And, if you like bluegrass and the old pure songs from the hills back from the 30s and 20s, there's a movie out you ought to watch called Songcatcher. Quite good, about a woman who went back up into the mountains to record original songs and found stuff that hadn't been changed from 14th century England. Very interesting. Songcatcher. Now, for my freewheeling topic for tonight. Dice, but more importantly, dice bags. How many is too many? How many do you have? Are most of them empty? Are you frustrating their purpose in the cosmos by not even putting one crappy die that you don't like in there? Think of all the dead lost civilizations of dice lice in those empty bags. They had a thriving population going of dice lice. Now, for those of you who don't know what dice lice are, I don't know, way back in Dragon, I guess, or maybe it was a late strategic review, dice lice live in the pips of your dice. And if you're in tune with them, they run to the right sides to give you the number you need. And you keep them in a bag so that they can refurbish themselves and they don't get inbred. And the lice can cross with other dice's lice. Yeah, other dice lice. Anyway, so how many bags do you have? Now, I have 5 different colors of Royal Crown bags. Maybe 6, a bunch. I have a bag that was a really nice gift from someone. Has Celtic design work on it. And the dice giveth and the dice taketh away. Very cryptic. Who it's from, I don't know. It was a gift. And I have another dice bag that's a gift. Has my name on it. From a friend's wife. I have old dice bags that we first made in 77 or 78 up in Delavan, actually. Jake and I and his wife made up a bunch of prototypes. I still have several of them. We made them out of velvet and put semi-precious stones on heavy cord. They were quite nice. We made different sizes. One was just for your favorite 2 6-siders and up. So there is no answer to how many is too many dice. I don't believe that's possible to answer, except in metaphorical or allegorical terms. But how many dice bags do you need? And do you just have them all sitting in a box empty, depriving them of their potential? Just a question. That's really all I got. So, the more comments I get, the more I have to talk about. Was there anything else? No, I guess I hit it all tonight. So, on that note, I'll say, Dodata Gobi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Called in Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.